Brought to you by Knights of Awakening. This is the Labyrinth. And I am your host, Charles McBride. One of the very first shows that we did on the Labyrinth, back when it was Blog Talk Radio and David had the poor misfortune of being the guy in charge of the switchboard for me. Well, actually, Justin had the poor misfortune on the first one. Come on, think of it. Oh, it's been a while. Justin had the poor misfortune, and David had the misfortune after that. Most of the time, was whether or not you were under spiritual attack. It was a heck of a show. I've always wanted to redo that, so that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to cover the topic again, and I'm going to make you think a little bit. Now, the question of whether or not someone is under spiritual attack is probably one that gets brought to my desk 5-10 times a month or more. Everybody seems to think they're under some kind of spiritual attack. And part of this is because it's easier to see an enemy than to deal with whatever else is going on. Part of it is we don't want to believe that something could be chance, or that something could be just bad luck, or a series of events that just unfolded in a way we didn't like. So the very first thing you've got to do is rule out outside influences. So before you go any further, you have to ask, is this a series of events that I could have expected to happen with the way they went down? And if they are, you can probably rule out attack unless you could have only expected them to go down in that way, but there was a very, very good chance that they would not. I should say fate, chance, luck. That's the word I'm looking for. Luck was in favor of things going down differently. Examples of this, things like cars breaking down or storms causing damage to your property, may or may not be an attack. So then you have to correlate, am I seeing a repeating pattern of this time after time? If you're seeing a pattern, the possibility of attack goes on the increase. But how do you know? Well, this is one of the chief concerns of the art of magic and mysticism that we call divination. You, however, since you're asking, am I under attack, are not the person to be figuring out if you're under attack. You're predisposed. In fact, the people that know you might not be the best ones to ask. Though if you have some in your circle or clique that you trust and are very good at divination, that's great. Maybe they would be good for that. When I say divination, I mean tarot cards, runes, the Ogum, I believe. I'm probably pronounced that wrong. Someone will correct me, I'm sure. The I Ching. Methods like that. Things that are pretty good for finding out what's going on. Palm reading is not going to help on this. Palm reading is a fine art. Finding out whether or not you're under attack, unless they took your hand off, palm reading is not going to tell you that. If you've lost your hand multiple times, then you are probably under attack. You should probably invest in a really good health insurance for resticking hands back on. But realistically, going the step of divination, which is the next logical road, the next road most people are going to tell you to go, you've got to do this in a double-blind way. You've got to do this without letting people cold read you, without letting you influence the reading. So you need to ask for a general reading about what's happening in your life now, before, and later. things of that nature. Maybe get a reading that looks at your spiritual, your physical, your mental. Maybe get one that looks at past, present, and future for all three of those. That's a good tarot spread there. That'd be a 9-card spread. That'd be a heck of a good reading. Would tell you a lot about what's going on. And if there are indicators, then you go to another diviner, and then another. And not necessarily people you got to spend money with. I'm not saying go out and drop a bank account on divination. If you have people you can trust, that's an option. After you've gotten a reading or two and they're pointing in this direction, now you can start to do your readings. Now you can start to look into it yourself. If when you look into it, it shows that you're not under attack, but you believe you are, and everyone else's readings indicate that you might be, then you may be undergoing an awakening or a transformation of some kind in your life. You may have some shift in your chakras or your other energy centers. You may be going through a form of shaman sickness. There are a lot of things that could be happening. Now, when you start to get everything piled up in one direction, it shows an attack. Other people's readings are showing it. Logically, the odds of having this bad of a month or week, generally it's months if you're under attack, are very slim. Odds of that very slim. All the readings point towards it. Your readings are pointing towards it. Your gut is pointing towards it. Other people in your clique, in your circle, are coming to you with concern about how you are doing. Then you can start to worry about being under an attack. If someone tells you they're going to curse you, if someone tells you they're putting a hex on you, you can skip a lot of these steps and just assume they will and fight back. Why would I say that? Because at that point they're making an intent known, and whether or not it's to psychologically mess with you or to soften you up for a spiritual attack doesn't really matter. It's still on you to defend yourself. And a ritual for shielding, a defensive method, putting up wards, creating stand-ins, things of this nature. Even if you're not under attack, it's going to give you psychological peace of mind. It's going to undo what they did. And maybe the ill will that they had intended for you and that they were hoping you would mess yourself up. Maybe they'll get a little bit of a rebound from some of that. What you don't want to do is what a lot of people do, which is jump to the conclusion that this person or that person or these 2 or 3 dozen people are attacking you, putting curses on you. Because most of the time people aren't. And if they're not, and you put all this emphasis on it, you'll create a thought form, a mental construct of them. It'll look perfectly like them. That will attack, that will fill the void that is missing in your dark heart. It will take up what you need to feel like you're under attack. And it will pursue you after a while, after you give it enough time and credit. And it'll look just like them. Amazingly, no matter what you do to them, it will continue. Why would it stop? So you don't want to empower something like that. You don't want to jump to a conclusion that you don't have evidences for. It's a road that leads to more heartache than it does anything else. But if you do find yourself under attack, the best bet is to fight back. To not assume the target, but to work your magics and spells and your craft, whatever that may be, in such a way that whatever is hitting you, you're striking back against. Not necessarily equally. Everyone in the the Wiccan community primarily, not everyone. Let's be fair. Everyone from the Gardner school of Wicca, no, the Gardner school, one very small subsection, hail from the idea that you should never give back more than is done to you. I disagree. You should give back enough to make them stop. If that's more, then so be it. A lot of people will hit you in the nose if they know all you'll do is hit them in the nose back. Very few people will risk hitting you in the nose after you broke their arm. I say do what you need to do at that point. But don't go looking for a fight. Don't go picking fights that aren't there. My experience has shown me that 90% of all attacks are awakenings, spiritual transformations, negative energy in an area, emotional instability, emotional turmoil, mental instability, life changes, all manner of things. That remaining 10%, though, you want to be certain on that. You want to confirm and reconfirm those card readings. You want to go through all of this many times over, because once you're sure, once you're really sure, you have to put to a fight. You can't stop once things get heated. If things get worse, you have to hit harder. If things become more difficult, you have to throw more into it. If you're in that 10% mark, someone's either told you, yeah, I'm putting a hex on you. Okay. Since you told me, fantastic. Or if you have someone you would suspect of it, and every sign points to them, and every divination points to them so clearly that it's eerie. The cards continue to describe them in all manner of things. Well then, you need to knock them on their ass. You need to end them as cleanly as you can. I don't mean killing them. That's acceptable. Don't get me wrong. Against a strong enough enemy, anything is permitted. But you definitely need to stop them. Not for your sake. For all of the people's sakes that they're going to come across. Because if they're coming after you and you're skilled, what are they going to do to the poor fool that isn't? What are they going to do to the innocent person in their life who has angered them, perturbed them, disturbed them, made them have a bad day? They're going to come after you and you're skilled enough to fight back. It's the kind of person that takes candy from a baby. It's the kind of person who beats the defenseless. So at that point, you've got to fight back. You no longer get to sit on your laurels or your morality, unless your morality involves letting someone else get hurt because you were unwilling to deal with the problem when it came to you. None of this is an easy topic, and none of it's that much fun. Realistically, we would all like to just enjoy life without any real conflict. Well, most of us would like to enjoy life without any real conflict. There is that small subsection that want to start a fight to start a fight. Or maybe they got something else to prove. You look like an easy target. I don't know. There's a lot of reasons. But you can't let them keep doing it. So if you are under attack and you've reached a point where multiple divinations, you've looked into this in many ways, with outside sources, inside sources. You know, you've got sources for sources at this point, and all of them are pointing in the same direction. End it fast. And if you don't know how to fight back, learn quick. Recruit the aid of those you trust that are skilled in it. Don't just have them deal with it, though. Ask them what they're doing. And if it sounds a little too fluffy bunny to work and you are still experiencing problems, write that off and move on to something a little more intense. This is, I guess, the show I wished I'd done so many years ago for the first Labyrinth episode. This format, this flow. Instead of spitting out all the information in like 15, 20 minutes and then trying to make the show last an hour. This is what it should have been. And I think it's a show that's necessary, and I'm hoping that it helps people in the mystical community, in the pagan community, the various other spiritual communities that I'm a part of that will be seeing this. Hoping it gives them tools. You'll notice one of the things I did not suggest was using second sight, or astral travel. The reason I recommend physical divination for this, physical divination, while easy to misinterpret, is harder to skew than perception. And all forms of planar projection or second sight rely on your perception, your mind's eye. The idea of what's in there within the mind and how it's going to perceive the currents and the energies and the actions at work. Well, this right here, that mind's eye right there, that is way too easy to fool. It's way too easy to throw off. It will always tell you what you need to see to understand it, assuming that you are so proficient that you won't cloud it yourself. You could still have an enemy appear in it because it's the only way your mind can understand that you have an enemy attacking you. Someone who's a known enemy to you. Well, after all, now you've got all the proof that it was them. And once you fire the first shot, I assure you they'll have all the reason they need to fire theirs. No, you can't rely on that for this kind of thing. And I'm a big proponent of those methods. I prefer the intuitive. I prefer the shamanic. Now, the other side of that. If you do journey work and things of that nature, and you see symbolism, an unknown enemy, that may be some evidence then, taken in accordance with tossing the bones or the runes or the dice, if you choose, the cards, if you're choosing. Taken alongside that, that may be enough. When it's enough. But if you see clear as day, I can see them clear as day, my enemy, in the distance. Well, you probably can't. If it's that clear, you can't be certain. Not without a lot more information backing that up. In closing, don't start fights that haven't already been started, because it will be a lot harder to finish them. Do make use of physical tools in this instance. Highly recommend it. One of the few times when I recommend a physical tool for someone who's practicing the arts deeply, beyond anything else, where I say, nope, there is no substitute. There is no substitute. I'm the same guy who says you don't need a staff or an athame if you have two fingers you can point. I'm the same guy who says that constantly. And yet, in this instance, I would be lost without my cards and my runes. After all, my mind will perceive an enemy where I believe one to be. These tools, they act as a good backup. Again, rely on friends. I want to thank you all for your time today. And as always, awaken the night within.